Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to our fall garden planning workshop. So, I just kind of want to get a pulse on the crowd. So, how many people here already do some gardening? Yay! All right. And how many people is this their first kind of introduction? Okay, good. Yes, we have a good mix. So we're going to cover a lot of things that are beginner and also things that are going to give you the tools you need to get going and get started for fall. And as I mentioned in the email, we love gardening in fall. It's like the best window, and there's just a few little kind of hacks to kind of get you started, get some of your species of plants a little leg up by starting inside. And so this is the time of year where you have to start your plants indoors to give your plants a leg up, to get all your fun broccolis and brassicas and the cruciferous or cole. That's like another word. There's so many. The English language, right? So I'm going to start and talk a little bit about our club. So how many people is this your first event with Austin Organic Gardeners? Yay! All right, yay! Lots of new people. So we've been around a while. We are on our 78th anniversary as a garden club, and so you might wonder, like, was organic even a thing? And it wasn't at the time, but the same family that started the club and helped get Zilker going in the 60s, the family's still involved, and they, in solidarity to protect Mother Earth and protect our soil, they fought against all of the post World War II sort of top down suggestions in the way that we take care of our soil. And so, with organic gardening, you're really gardening your soil. So, that's the thing we like to emphasize. So, we're going to spend some time today talking about these amendments and things you can add to your soil to really give it really kind of activate it for the fall plants. So this harsh summer, we feel like everything's on fire right now, and like it's so hard to even think about caring for plants when it's so dang hot. But we it's super important that we know that with these hot temperatures, a lot of the soil right now, it's like a lot of the microbes and living things in it have either they are going dormant or they are going further down. All the earthworms, all the living things are going down into the soil where it's a little bit cooler. So we'll talk a little bit about what the importance of our soil blends. So make sure that it's alive, and then we'll get into all the varieties and the timing. We have some great calendars. I also sent those out to everybody on the email. So make sure you check out all that content. We also brought some other seeds that you can use to direct seed your garden. So right now, we also put out what to plant now. It's like a moon calendar. It's something that we put in our newsletter on our website, just to kind of give people a little bit help people out with their scheduling and getting their timing right, because it's super important. Right now is our root plants, and so one of the root plants we can start planting right now is multiplying garlic. So I brought a bunch of seeds, like little bulbs, and these little seeds, they do great on your perimeters. They kind of act as like a natural kind of distraction. It's like a way to kind of do like integrative pest management. That's one of the terminology that you hear from the extension services. But it's a way to kind of distract the plants away from your vegetables. So you can kind of put them on the edges and protect your plants. And they're super delicious. So I just fermented a bunch of Dr. Pound garlic. And Dr. Pound is actually like, he was a homesteader. I think his farm is in Dripping Springs. He was a doctor, and that's apparently where he probably brought them over from Europe, but that's where the garlic came from. And there's just been people in our club passing it along for many years. So it's definitely an heirloom plant. But yeah, so feel free. Those seeds are in the brown paper bag. So I think we may have, you could just put like a few, like grab a tray or something like that. I didn't bring any like bags or anything, but yeah, I've been using it for years in my garden. I love putting it on the perimeters and then harvesting it in it's forget how many days, like probably like 100 and something days. It's a long crop, but basically like in this May-ish, your garlic's gonna flop over, and that's when you harvest it. And I just do the hack where you ferment it in your Instapot for about 4 weeks, and recommend putting it outside because it will stink up your house. That's for sure. But you just keep it on the yogurt, like the low setting. But yeah, if you've never had black garlic, it's so good. So yeah, so Mary is going to talk about cover crops. We also have a bunch of cover crop seeds, and that's one of the things that we really are huge on. We like to share the good word about using cover crops to protect our soil and keep it alive, even in these harsh climates that we're having right now, harsh temperatures. So yeah, so Mary's going to come on up, and then after that, Austin Davenport is going to get us started with some demonstrations. And then after that, we'll all put together our seed trays and get our plants going inside.
Morning. Nice and humid this morning, isn't it? Actually, I think the humidity is really a cool thing. I was at a conference last weekend in San Marcos called the Southern Farm and Food Conference, something like that. And I saw Ray Archuleta speak, and he is a speaker who was in the film Kiss the Ground. Have you guys seen that? I thought it was really cool. It's a film about the soil. It's very popular. Woody Harrelson narrates it. It came out in I think 2020, and he was a sensational speaker. And one of the slides he put up was it was in a I was in an American desert that I suddenly realized that rain does not fall from the heavens. It comes from the ground. Desert formation is not due to the absence of rain, but the rain ceases to fall because the vegetation has disappeared. So actually, this humidity we're feeling is from the plants that actually we have, and we don't have a desert. We have a humid environment, which is really good because of the plants. So that might be a funny thing to understand. It's very sciencey, but I I wanted to learn more about it because of climate change. And so I have a yard, a quarter-acre yard that was very cracked and dry when I moved in 8 years ago. And I was like, okay, this is terrible. There's blackland prairie soil. And I set about trying to figure out why it was like that and what I could do to make it regenerative. So I read something called the white paper that the Rodell Institute put out, and he says that regenerative agriculture could 100% sequester annual carbon. But this isn't widely used in the chemical industry. Wow, that's louder, huh? This isn't used in the commercial growing, and I couldn't figure out why. So in our home gardens, we have tons of yards that have grasses, and they're not sequestering carbon, and you would think they would be because the grass looks good, it's growing well. But that grass that we typically grow is not long rooted and not tall. And so the bushy roots that are in the grass that does grow, that does sequester carbon, is how it's done. It has to have those long roots. So what can we do as home gardeners to change that dynamic of not sequestering carbon in our yards? Um, so I was listening to some researchers at this conference I'm telling you about in South Texas, from South Texas, and they're very young, and they're working with the commercial growers in South Texas, and they have these big, huge, thousands of acres, and they're not so they're trying to get them to do cover crops in that, and it's great. I'm glad they're doing that, but the problem, I guess, the thing that really shocked me the most when I was hearing them speak was that they told me that the farmers couldn't use waste from their crops in their fields to be regenerative because there were no microbes in the ground to decompose the waste. So think about that. No microbes at all in these fields. And so how did that happen? Chemical use, right? We're talking thousands of acres that are completely sterile. And I don't know, I guess I've thought about all this stuff for a long time, but for some reason that really shocked me. I was like, so that means that they can't be regenerative because there's no microbes to be regenerative because they've killed them all. And that was huge for me. I was like, okay, I think I got it now. um, so let's go back to my yard. So in my yard, I have I'm not sterile. I haven't been using stuff. I've actually put a lot of things down to make it um, have microbes, but this heat is really stressing them out. So I actually mulch a lot and I do a lot of cover crops. So they're not, I don't think, in bad shape. Um, but when I started to plant cover crops that first year, it's about 4 years ago, I think, I couldn't believe how much moisture was kept, even after it died down. I had dew and moisture every day in a very cracked field, even in the middle of summer. So I think the power of cover crops is very big. And I'm going to tell you about them because I think if you use cover crops, you will notice how much more moisture you have in your yard. So I don't know about you, but I've been driving around lately and seeing the dust clouds. And you know why that is? Because something is uncovered, has no microbes, and that's how desertification happens. It's a hard word, but desertification. And that's what we can have if we have bare dirt and we don't cover it. And so we don't want to be desertified here in Austin. And the way we move forward with that is by planting and having greens in the ground. Does that make sense, Joe? Yeah. Okay. So let's get into a little science about it. Um, Plants release moisture through transpiration, making humidity and attracting moisture in the form of dew, creating your local water system. In the morning, you can see all the moisture that developed in the night and you can feel it. And this becomes water vapor during the day. This is your system of moisture. That condensation that eventually comes back down as rain. 40% of our rain comes from small local water cycles. If your soil is bare, you will have more evaporation. When you add organic matter to the soil and plant cover crops, you build more than fertility. You build soil moisture and soil carbon. This moisture and carbon keeps the microorganisms alive. When the small water cycles are disrupted due to plant or tree loss from overharvesting or freezes, we have desertification. Heat radiates off bare soil. When hot air is going out, instead of attracting the rain, the hot air pushes the rain away. This is why no bare soil is important. So, what is carbon sequestration? Carbon sequestration is the capturing and removal of storage of carbon dioxide from the Earth's atmosphere. By adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, we are supercharging the natural greenhouse effect, causing global temperatures to rise. Plants remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and exude it and store it in the soil. This is called carbon sequestration. Mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria are responsible for fixing carbon in the soil. As gardeners, we must refrain from using synthetic pesticides and fertilizers which disrupt soil life. Keeping the soil food web alive is how we sequester carbon. Using your garden residue for mulching, composting, and no-till and no-dig, this is how you be a climate change gardener. Compost and organic fertilizers help plant and grow more roots and fix carbon. Soil cannot support microbial life or plant life without sufficient organic matter. So, the Wes Jackson from the Land Institute says Essentially, all nature's ecosystems are perennial polycultures. Agriculture reversed that, and consequently, soil erosion became a problem. The wildness has to become a standard against which we judge our agricultural and cultural practices. Cover crops act as living mulches and increase soil carbon due to deep, bushy root systems. When we move toward having plants and living roots in the ground all year, you really noticed an increased biodiversity and sequestering of carbon. Cover crops reduce soil and wind erosion, reduce unwanted weeds, and decrease water runoff. When you improve your soil, you reduce evaporation and fix nitrogen, you plant legumes. Carbon is also the plant material when you reuse your yard waste. This plant material becomes organic soil matter. When you remove it, you deplete organic soil matter. Keep it in as a soil carbon accumulator. So, a seed sandwich. So, I'm thinking, okay, how do you put all that waste down and then put the seeds in on top of that? You're like, how does that even work, right? So they were showing at the conference these little machines that stick holes in the ground and then put a seed in. That's how agriculture does it. I don't have one of those machines. So the way I do it is I do something called a seed sandwich. And I put in like a nice layer of mulch on top of the cut cover crop, and then I put keeping everything wet, and then I pre-soak the seeds. I lay the seed, I spread the seeds out liberally, and then I put another half inch of dirt on top of that, and keep that really wet, and that makes pretty good germination. I used to, when we had better rainfall, just sling them down and had maybe 50%. But I think we've got to be more precise. So that's why I do what's called a seed sandwich. There's on the table a flyer about describing that. The other thing that you want to do is use inoculant. Does anybody know what inoculant is? You want to say? Yeah, so something you add to seeds when you're planting them. And when I soak the seeds, I put the inoculant in, and it all kind of gets all big before I put it down. Inoculant is what helps the nitrogen get fixed to the plant and draws it down from the atmosphere. You have to have the inoculant, and sometimes soils have that already. There's also a flyer on the table about how to use the inoculant, and you can look at mine if you want to. So soil temperatures for microbes. Microbes thrive in moderate temperatures in moist soils from 60 to 85. If soil is left bare and dry, high temperatures of 140 can kill them. So if you've got mulch and plants and things on your ground, your microbes are probably okay, even though it's very hot. But soil temperatures without all those coverings can reach 160. So you can kind of see why we've got this sterile thing going on. So timing of planting. So the plants we want to put in. So over there we've got free cover crop seeds. In winter we've got, you want to put in clover, mustard, vetch, wildflowers, wheat, inkhorn, rye, oats, quinoa, Austrian peas. In summer you want to put in buckwheat, black-eyed peas, millet, sorghum, amaranth, beans, corn, squash. So we have some funky seasons going on. And I did not get my cover crop in because it got too hot too quick this year for the summer. So I'm actually thinking of maybe putting it in a week or so and letting it go for a little bit, and then maybe put the winter one in around the same time. It's up to you. You know how you have to time planting things and based on what it looks like's going on, and I've had things blooming at the same time that they're supposed to be dying. So it's typically you can put in your summer ones when you put in your summer plants. You can put in your winter ones when you put in your winter plants. You decide. Um, so how do you work with city? So I have a lot of people tell me I can't have tall stuff in my yard because the city people come and they tell me to mow it. Fair point. But I found out that if you get something called a certified wildlife habitat, and you put a little sign on your front gate, the city does not bother you anymore. And so it works pretty good. So I don't know. I've never had an HOA, but that's a good question. So have you talked to HOA and said, I'm going to have a certified wildlife habitat and see what they say? Yeah. Yeah. But so the city, I've actually talked to city workers and said, I have this. How come the code people don't bother me? And they said, we actually, when we see that sign, we don't citate, give people citations when they have that sign. So it's a free pass, guys. Get the sign and plant stuff because that's really what's gonna sequester carbon and keep your yard from drying out. So, any questions? There's actually a list on the table, and the seeds that I mentioned are on the table. Any other questions? Can't hear you. Sorry. You know, cover crops are anywhere you have bare dirt. So if your garden's bare, put them in. If your yard's bare, put them in. If your neighbor's yard's bare, put them in. Is there median? Put them in. Really, anywhere you want. Um, so they're not as fussy as plants. You kind of have to make sure they're not drying out when you put them in initially. But after that, I never water them. They actually generate their own water. So when you have something high like that, they generate dew, which waters themselves. So they're really great like that. Ready to go? Ready to go. Okay.
I'm going to go hands free here, move this out of my way, and hopefully I sound good in the back. Thank you, thank you. So I'm Austin Davenport. I'm a local gardener. I'm a member of the Austin Organic Gardeners, and we're here today to talk about seed starting. The first thing I want to talk about before we do that is that we have our fall fundraising plant sale coming up, and I'd love to encourage you all, after you're so inspired and so full of knowledge here, to maybe think about donating some seeds that you started and give us those seedlings to sell at our plant sale. We'd really, really appreciate that. As well as with our plant sale, our members have first pick. So if you do become a member, if you're not a member, or if you are a member, please feel encouraged to come out and get the pick of the litter when we do have our plant sale. So I'm going to go over a few different things, and then we have some stations, and I'll go over the stations at the end. Just grab my handy dandy notes. First thing I'm going to talk about is soil. We have some nice organic potting mix that we grabbed, and we're going to amend that with a few things. I have a bag of Espoma seed starting mix, which just helps like root encouragement. And then you can mix in things like slow release fertilizers that'll actually break down and become plant available. As your plant grows nice and strong, it'll use those up and it'll be perfect. So the thing about the potting mix, we want to sift it very well. So I have two sifters over by the sifting station, and you see all this gigantic material. Your seedlings do not want to be in a seed cell with all of this gigantic material. So you got to get it out of your potting mix. It's always going to be in your potting mix, so you pretty much always have to fluff up and sift your soil. All right. I like to get it all nice and wet and mix it all in and get it damp first before I put it in my seed starting cells. I'll know it's fully hydrated when I plump it up in my hands and squeeze really tight and just a few drops come out. If a bunch of drops come out, maybe add a little bit more soil just to get nice at a perfect hydration level. All right, seed tips. You always want to sow your seed twice as deep as it is wide. So if it's a big old pumpkin seed, that thing needs to go in pretty deep. If it's a little brassica seed, like some kales we're going to be seeding, it doesn't need to go that deep, just as long as it's twice as deep as it is wide. You really want to go just one seed per cell. If it's a tricky germinator like any of the alliums, I have some leeks back there, or if you're starting onion seeds, you can multi-sow those because when you try to pull them apart, the roots will be nice and strong and they'll survive the shock. Other plants probably won't survive that shock. All right, that's all I have to say about seeds and soil. We'll go over some different seed stations and styles we have going on. So we're not a big fan of plastic, but we like to reuse plastic, and hopefully you do too. These are just some to-go containers you probably got it for Uber Eats. These are great to start some seeds in, but it's going to be pretty packed in here. You're going to want to put seeds in here that can be moved around in, digging up, transplanting them, and ripping them apart. So again, hardier seeds you can put in these, onions, things like that. My personal favorite seed starting material are these. These are some cardboard seed trays I got at Daiso, which is like the Japanese dollar store. There's one on Airport, so I got a big pack of these for only about $1.15. These are my favorite things. If you try to buy these on Amazon, they might give you some that are hydrophobic and they won't break down. So when these are all nice and damp and after about 3 or 4 weeks and the plug is like nice and ready to be transplanted, I'll just rip one of them off. And this little guy, I'll just put this in the dirt. I won't take the plug out of it. All the roots will be popping through this. It'll be perfectly half broken down and it'll just continue to break down in the soil. No transplant shock. Transplant shock is a big, big factor when it comes to seed starting indoors. And then if you wanted to pot up, so if you have plugs, but it's still too hot outside and your plugs are growing out of their seed trays, they're going to need to go in something bigger. And typically they'll be moved into a 4-inch pot. I have some more cardboard pots to give away, or you can put it in a plastic 4-inch pot. Please do save all your plastic 4-inch pots, stock them up. Someone's always looking for 4-inch pots. Maybe give them back to the nurseries you like to go to and see if you can get a good deal, a discount. Egg cartons are also a fantastic little recyclable seed starting material. I like to rip the top off and put it underneath the bottom, just so I have like a water catchment for all the water in here. And then the same sort of principle, you'll just try to like gently cut off each little egg shell and plant that as opposed to taking the soil out of it. These will break down in the soil, no problem. Your plants are strong enough to have the roots puncture through that. The next thing is soil blocking. So I'm a big fan of soil blocking, but soil blocking is not easy. It's not for beginners. And even the best soil blockers are really, really struggling sometimes because you need to get your soil at the perfect hydration level. You need to pack it in this thing perfectly, and you need to punch it out perfectly. And if you don't do any of those steps correctly, you're just going to wind up with a bunch of loose soil in a tray, and you don't want that. But we'll go over that. We'll go over why you should consider soil blocking and why you should know soil blocking is finicky. And for soil blocks, I like to place them on one of these. So I have 2 trays here. I have a top tray and then a reservoir for water. And what I like to do is take some twine, and I'll put a bunch of twine all throughout that, and all this twine is going to hang in the water, and that's going to bring water up to the seeds as they need them. The twine can only get so hydrated, so it's always going to be perfect for watering your plants. It's a bottom watering method, so the water will come from the bottom, not the top. You'll save on a lot of issues when it comes to molds and fungus and stuff like that. Light source. So I like to use planting lights. I like half LEDs, half T5s personally, because the T5s do bring a bit of heat and the LEDs don't. The LEDs will be your light strength, and then the T5s will be your light heat. You can also use windowsills. You could try to seed start outside with your seeds getting sunlight, but it is going to be finicky and they might get fried out there because all the plants are looking a little crispy. And the last thing we'll do is just be sure to monitor your planting calendar. This will tell you everything you can plant this upcoming fall and winter. Is primarily your brassicas, your root vegetables, those sorts of things. If you wanted to try to do pumpkins and stuff like that, feel encouraged, but know that that is a bit of a gamble. And again, we're going to go over so many more details on Monday and a little fall and winter prepare guide. I don't believe I have anything else to mention. Mary's going to come up here and talk a little bit more, but we do have a couple of stations. I have a seed blocking station where I'm going to be demoing that. We have a bunch of plastic pots you can take home. We have a paper station, and we have a bunch of seeds.
Seeds. So we're doing our plants for the fall fundraiser for our Austin Organic Gardeners. Our plant sale is September 30th. We're very excited. So part of doing this workshop is so we're hoping people will bring back the seedlings they've made and use them, give them to us for our sale. That would be so cool. The other thing is we're looking for is unusual varieties of seeds because we want to grow stuff nobody else got or you can't buy at the nursery. So if you have some really awesome seeds that you want to share with us that you think are really cool, you can't buy anywhere, we would love to have that. And we're going to share them with our grower who's going to grow our seedlings for us, Gabriel Valley. And if you could tell us about it or bring them up to us or on Monday or whatever you want, that'd be awesome because we want to have the coolest vegetables ever at our plant sale. So thank y'all for coming. Monday night. Yeah, so here at Zilker in the big room, next to the gift shop, we have our meeting every Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, Monday night at 6:37 till about 8:30, and we live stream it. It's on Zoom. You can come in person. We love it when people come and talk because we give away plants, we give away seeds. Everybody gets to meet. We have some food. It's really a good time to have, to have club night. So we look forward to it every month, and we hope to see you guys there. Second Monday of the month. So thank you everybody for coming, and let's do some seeds. Let's come back.
So yeah, so on top of our second Saturday workshop, we'll be doing those throughout the fall. We also meet here. There's a sign up on our website to volunteer. We maintain the gardens, the veggie gardens here at Zilker. And so if you're wanting to grow along with us and learn and just feel the cycles of all the seasons and all the things you can plant, because we grow all year long here at Zilker, you're welcome to join us. And there's a sign up on our website. But yeah, so the next workshop that we're doing in September, we're going to learn how to grow mushrooms in containers. So as temperatures cool down, there's ways we can grow mushrooms from spent mushroom substrate or mushroom blocks. And so we work with the Central Texas Mycology to keep all that organic matter out of the trash and teach you how to basically you're composting and also growing mushrooms at the same time, which is very exciting. Just an extra bonus with composting. So keep an eye out for that. Follow us on the social medias. We have a free newsletter. Become a member. We're always looking for members to help support our organization. We want to keep this tradition alive, going all the way back to 1945. And so with that, we can all start to gather seeds. So I'm going to have the seed station. If everybody can raise your hand where you are with seeds, that's where we'll start. And once you have your seeds, we can go to the station where Austin is in the back there. We have two stations for grabbing 4-inch pots if you want to go that route. And also just like smaller trays for starting indoors. And I just wanted to point out again, like, this is kind of where I started, super simple, like, taking a to-go container and using a light like this, just a few bucks to get some seeds started indoors. So yeah, we just want to kind of demystify and help everybody know that you don't need a whole lot of resources to get your garden going in the fall. So that'll be the last station, and I recommend you wait to get home to water. And tap water's fine. We usually tell people to let it sit out a little bit, let the chloramine and the chloramine, which is in our Austin water, it takes a little bit for that to evaporate. And you can use that with your plants, but that we don't want to disrupt the microbes in the soil, and that chloramine will do that. So yeah, I think that's it. Did I miss anything? All right, everybody. Well, let's get growing.